The small town of Cedar Ridge, Texas, wasn't the kind of place that made headlines. It was the kind of town where everyone knew each other, where American flags hung proudly on front porches, and where people still greeted strangers with a smile. It was also the hometown of Sergeant Ethan Walker, a young Army soldier who had spent most of his life dreaming about serving his country. Ever since he was a little boy, Ethan admired his father, a Vietnam veteran who taught him the values of honor, sacrifice, and compassion. But when Ethan was only 16 years old, cancer took his father away, leaving behind only memories and an old Army watch that Ethan treasured more than anything else. His mother, Sarah Walker, became his entire world. She worked 2 jobs, skipped meals whenever money was tight, and somehow managed to give her son a childhood filled with love. She never complained. She simply smiled and told Ethan, "As long as you're happy, I'm rich." Years later, when Ethan enlisted in the Army, Sarah smiled proudly through tears. Every Sunday, without fail, Ethan wrote her letters. Sometimes they were funny. Sometimes they were short. Sometimes they simply said, "Don't worry, Mom. I'm eating enough." Those letters became Sarah's treasures. She kept every single one inside an old wooden box beside her bed. On lonely nights, she reread them and imagined hearing her son's voice. It made the distance easier to bear. Then came the phone call every military family fears. 2 officers stood quietly outside her front door. Sarah knew before they spoke. Sergeant Ethan Walker had been killed during a rescue operation overseas while helping evacuate wounded soldiers under enemy fire. The world around her stopped. Friends visited. Neighbors brought food. People spoke of sacrifice and honor. But Sarah barely heard them. All she knew was that her little boy wasn't coming home. Months passed. Then a year. Sarah couldn't bring herself to open Ethan's room. His baseball trophies remained untouched. His Army jacket still hung in the closet. And his last unopened envelope sat quietly inside the wooden box. She couldn't do it. Not yet. But on Memorial Day, 1 year after his death, Sarah finally gathered enough courage. With trembling hands, she opened the letter. And suddenly, it felt like Ethan was sitting beside her again. "Dear Mom. If you're reading this, then things probably didn't go the way we hoped. First, don't cry too much. I know you. You're probably blaming yourself for things that aren't your fault. Mom, I need you to promise me something. Please don't stop living. Don't spend your days sitting in my room. Don't miss holidays because you're sad. And please don't stop making those terrible pancakes you always burn. Because life is too precious to stop living. I know losing Dad almost broke you. And if you're reading this, then losing me probably feels unbearable. But Mom, you gave me everything. You taught me kindness. You taught me courage. You taught me how to love people. And if I became a good man, it's because I had the greatest mother God ever created. So please don't spend your life mourning me. Live. Laugh. Travel. Adopt that dog you've always wanted. And every once in a while, look up at the stars and remember that I love you. Not because I was your son. But because being your son was the greatest blessing of my life. And Mom, when your time finally comes, don't be afraid. Because Dad and I will be waiting. Love forever. Your little boy, Ethan." By the time Sarah finished reading, tears streamed down her face. But for the first time in a year, she smiled. Not because the pain was gone, but because her son had given her permission to live again. Months later, Sarah adopted an old golden retriever from a shelter. She started volunteering at veterans' hospitals. And every Memorial Day, she hosted dinner for military families who had lost loved ones. People often asked how she found the strength. She always smiled and pointed to the old wooden box. "My son taught me," she would say. Years later, when Sarah passed away peacefully at 84, family members found something resting gently in her hands. Ethan's final letter. Folded carefully. worn with age, and stained with tears. Because some letters are never really goodbye. Sometimes they're love that lasts forever.